This review worksheet for the EOC. Anything I write down, you need to write down. We will complete this together. This is a good review for your EOC that will be coming up later in the year. Please make sure that you complete this and have it ready to turn in the next time we see each other. Okay guys, here we go. It says, write an expression for the phrase. So you know you're not going to have an equal sign because expressions do not have equal signs. It's the first thing you need to know. It says X is going to be your variable because it says use X to represent the unknown quantity. It says with the return of $8 deposit, okay, return, you're getting it back, okay. The total rental fee came to 8 less than, again, less than means you're subtracting, but the 8 is going to go after whatever we're talking about. So it's going to be 12 times that unknown hourly rate. We already said that X is going to be our hourly rate. So we're going to have 12 times the hourly rate, 12 times that hourly rate. But then we are going to have 8 less than that. That less than always goes at the end. So it would be 12x minus 8. From there, the next one says, name the first 3 numbers in the sequence. So what we've got to do is figure out what's happening between each number, one of these numbers, and then go backwards. So let's see. Well, 80 to 160, they'd add 6. No, they're not adding the same amount. Let's try multiplying. 80 to 160, you would multiply by 2. 160, yeah, by 2. My guess is that's it every time. So if you're multiplying by 2 every time, we need to go backwards to go to the smaller numbers that are in front. So we need to see what would happen right here. What would we have to do? Well, to go backwards, you do the opposite of the multiplication. So if we divide by 2, that would put us here at 40, because 40 times 2 is 80. Again, going backwards, you do the opposite. So the opposite of multiplying, dividing by 2 would put us at 20. And then again, to go backwards again, since multiplying by 2 is the consistent theme, this is going to make this go backwards and divide 20 by 2. That's going to put us at 10. So the first 3 numbers in that sequence are going to be 10, 20, 40. That finding patterns and following through on whatever it is, up or down, is something they definitely could ask you about on there. Okay, guys, domain. It says name the domain of the function. Domain is always going to be your x's. So all you're doing is making a set. Now sets do need braces on either side of them. And if you're looking at the x's, x's are always going to be the first number in each one of your ordered pairs. So you're going to list out the x's in a set. 2, 3, 5, and 8. They're already listed from least to greatest, so we don't need to rearrange them at all. So that would be your domain. Okay, for number 4, you're looking at a proportion. Now in a proportion, you are going to cross multiply to solve. You're going to multiply the 8 times the x. That's going to drop down over on this side. That's going to give you 8x. You're then going to cross multiply the 6 times 5, and you're going to drop that down over on this side. 6 times 5 is going to put you at 30. All right, divide both sides by 8. Now you will need to use your calculator for this. Go ahead and divide that, reduce that. It depends on how the answers are given in the on the EOC. 30 over 8 would reduce down to 15 over 4. You could also, just so we're clear about this, you could also leave your answer as x equals, and you could do 30 divided by 8, and that would give you the decimal 3.75. Since there were no directions, either answer would be correct on the EOC. Just make sure you read if it asks you for the answer in a specific form. Does it ask for it in fraction form? Does it ask for it in decimal form? Okay, for this next one it says you have a coupon for 10% off. Remember, 10% as a decimal is going to be 2 places over. That's going to put you at 0.10, and you're taking it off, so you're going to be dealing with that as a discount. Okay? And it says 10% off of a DVD that costs $15. So we're taking we're taking 10% off of a DVD that cost us try that again. You are taking 10% off of a DVD that costs you $15. In addition to that payment though for the DVD, you also have to pay a tax. It says the tax is 8%. and it's charged on the original amount, and what will you pay for the DVD? Now, because the tax is charged on the original amount, you're going to have two different scenarios here when you're working through this problem. Okay? So first things first, if you're getting 10% off, you're going to start by paying 100% minus that 10%, which means you're going to be paying for 90% of that item. We're not going to deal with the 10% right here. As a decimal, we're going to just use this 90% and turn it into a decimal. That 90% is the amount that you're paying for of that item, and when you turn that into a decimal, it's going to turn into 0.90. However, we have to pay that 8% on the original amount, so we've got to pay this 8%, which is 2 places over, going to be 0.08 as a decimal on the original amount of 15. So we've got two different things to deal with. So first, let's talk about the amount we're going to pay for the actual DVD, just the cost of it. So the cost of it is going to be 90% of the original amount. So we're going to pay 15 times 0.90. But in addition to that, you're going to have to pay a tax. That tax is going to be 8%, which is 0.08, times that original amount of 15. So it's going to be 15 times 0.08. And those two things added together will give you the total for that item. When you multiply 15 times 0.90, that's going to give you 13.5. When you multiply the 15 times 0.08, that's going to give you, let's see, 1.2. And when you add those two things together, that's going to give you 14.7. Now guys, listen, you can just type this thing all the way across if you want to. You don't have to do them separately. Your calculator that you're allowed to use on this EOC will let you just type the whole thing all at once and hit equals, and it'll go straight to 14.7. Now, that is money, depends on how they're asking this, but more than likely it's going to be listed as money, which means even though it's 14.7, because money is going to have two numbers after the decimal place, you are going to have to put a placeholder here, which if you don't have any value there, you're going to be putting 0 as a placeholder to make it $14.70. So after the discount is applied and the tax is applied, you'll be paying $14.70 for that DVD. Okay guys, let's pull that down. On the next one, it says, use the equation to model a relationship shown in the table. Guys, the relationship means you are writing an equation. Okay, that's what we're doing. So we want to see what the change is. Every time right here, it's increasing by 1. Over here, we want to see what the change is. Let's see, 12 to 24, 24. No, not multiplying by 2. It's adding 12 every time. And when it adds the same amount every time, remember that means this is going to be a linear equation, which means we are going to be writing our equation in the form y equals mx plus b. So we need a slope, we need a y-intercept. Now, before we talk about anything, let's talk about the y-intercept. If you've had 0 months, let's think about this, would you have any costs? The answer would be no. So your y-intercept is just going to be the point 0, 0. That part, the b, we already know. That part's easy peasy. If you have 0, you get 0. That part we don't need to worry about. What we need to worry about is the formula to get slope from a table. Let's remind you what that is. It is the change in y over the change in x. The change in y over the change in x. So if we're looking for our slope right here, which we know we call m, that's going to be the change in our y. The y's are always over here. So it's going to be 12 over the change in x, which is 1, which means our slope is going to reduce down to 12. Now that we have our m and b, we can easily write our equation. When we write that equation, it's going to be y equals, and our m is 12, so it's going to be 12x. Now guys, it's 0 on the end. You don't write plus 0. That would not be simplified, so we're just going to write it like this. That's the end of that. What that means is it goes to the origin of the graph. You all know the point 0, 0 is the origin, and we don't ever write anything on the end if it goes to that origin. Okay, for the next one, this is a function. It's f of x. It says it's equal to the square root of x. They want to know what f of 68 is equal to, so all we do is plug that in. F of 68 is going to be equal to the square root of, and then we replace it with whatever number's inside that parentheses. So it's going to be 68, that x is being replaced by the 68. So then we work that out. F of 68 is equal to, and then we do the square root of 68. Now, it's kind of unique because it does say to round it to the nearest integer, and when you do the square root of 68 on the calculator, that's going to give you 8.2. I'm trying to put it somewhere where it doesn't look like the answer. 8.2. And nearest integer means the nearest whole number. So we've got an 8 with a 2 behind it, so it's just going to round off to 8. That would be our final answer. Guys, don't fall for, like, if they put 8.2 on there, because that's what it looks like most on the calculator, it says nearest integer. That means the nearest whole number. No, like you're not going to have any decimals. Okay? No falling for their tricks, because they're going to put 8.2 there. Okay? So it's going to look just like what's on the calculator, but the 8 is what they want because they said the nearest integer. Okay, for the next one, we're talking about properties. On this property, what they've done is 4, -7, and 5. 4, -7, and 5. They have not changed the order at all. All they've done is they changed the grouping from the first two being grouped together to the second two being grouped together. And grouping is associating. So this is going to be the associative property. And of, well, are we adding or are we multiplying? Because it works over both. In this case, we are multiplying, so of multiplication. Writing all those words out makes it take up a lot of space. Sorry, guys. Okay, over here, what property are they dealing with? So we've got 6, 3, 1. 6, 3, no, absolutely different like different order. They actually have 6 repeating. What they're actually doing is applying the 6 to the 3 and multiplying that, and then the 6 to the 1. And when you take and distribute a number across what's in the parentheses, that is going to be your distributive property. Alright. Now, they could add of something. We haven't learned it like that yet, but just so you know, they could. If it was, it would be multiplication over addition. Okay, the multiplication for that distributive property always comes first, and then whatever's inside goes second. Okay, guys. From there, we're solving a couple of inequalities. For these inequalities, we're looking at n minus 9.4 is greater than or equal to 5.6. To undo this subtraction, we are going to add 9.4, add 9.4. That's going to make it n is greater than or equal to, and when you add those two together, that's going to give you 25. On this one, guys, remember, most times, and to read it using our rules, they're going to want your variable on the left-hand side on an inequality. It doesn't matter on an equation, but on an inequality, they're going to want it on the right, on the left-hand side. You're going to want the numbers on the right. So because of that, the very first thing I'm going to do is switch it. I'm going to make it -4x and -20. And when I switch it, I need to turn the sign that's here in the middle around. It was less than or equal to. Now it's going to be greater than or equal to. Now, this is a one-step multiplication problem, but we are dividing by a negative number, and when we divide an inequality by a negative number, you must flip the sign. So this cancels out. We get just x, These cancel out, and we would, when we divide this, 20 divided by 4 is going to put us at 5. And we need to flip this sign so that it was greater than or equal to, and now it's less than or equal to. All right, and that's your final answer because you have your variable on one side and your numbers on the other. Okay, last two on this front side. Let's see what we've got. The formula for finding the area of a triangle is, okay, so I'm going to write that out. Area equals 1/2 base times height. A triangle has a height of 12, so they're giving me the height right here is going to be 12. I'm going to go and plug that in. The area is 54, so I know the area over here is going to be 54. I know the 1/2 stays 1/2, and it says, what is the length of the base? So we don't know the base, so we're going to keep the base as a B in here. I'm going to put dots in here because you've got numbers on front and back, not just in front. So, guys, we're going to solve this problem for our unknown variable. To do that, the first thing I'm going to do is take half of the base, multiply these two numbers. When I do that, that's going to bring down 54 equals half of 12 is going to put us at 6b. This is a one-step multiplication problem, so we are going to divide both sides by 6. And that means that 6 put us at 9 equals b. Now, if b equals 9, remember it's a word problem. Depending on how they want the answer, you may have to type into a box. It's going to be that the length of the base is 9, and you do have to have a unit, guys. Remember, we're working backwards. This is a piece that's the base of it. It is not the area, so it's not square units. It's going to be regular units, and our units in this problem is going to be inches. Nice. Okay, guys, here we go. The following graph shows the distance over time between a car and a police officer. For how many seconds was the car within 200 feet or less of the officer? So we've got to see where 200 feet is. Here's the 200 feet. Let's draw a line all the way across. So we're looking for, oh, let me try that again. Got a little off. Try to get, here, let me use my tool just so it's really straight so we can see it. Let's use our tool to go draw that line all the way across. Okay, at 200 right here. There, that's a little bit easier to see for y'all. Okay, so that is going through, and it is intersecting here, and it stays underneath until right here. Okay, so we're going to count blocks for that. That's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then about a half. That's an estimate, guys. It's an estimate. It says for how many seconds was the car below there. So it is, or excuse me, within that or less. So it's going to be an estimate to get to that half. It's about half, but I would say that'd be 6.5 or 6 1/2. Either answer is correct. And since we are dealing with, what are these, seconds, we would say 6.5 seconds. We're looking for this time that goes all the way from under here where it is under that 200. It's got to be at or underneath that 200. Okay, guys, so this is the first half of the worksheet. Click on the next video to see the second half of this worksheet.